snow drifted across the wide-open platform, each flake glinting beneath the lantern glow like sparks torn from some unseen fire. The station clock, black and iron-wrought, tolled with the merciless rhythm of a judge's gavel, declaring the hours of her waiting. Evelyn Hart sat on the bench, back straight despite the cold that seeped through her pale dress, a small leather suitcase resting by her side like the last remnant of a life she had once believed in. For 3 days she had remained there, unclaimed, unspoken for, her name carried by no one's lips but her own. Time, it seemed, had carved her into part of the scenery, just another abandoned soul on the edge of the frontier. Each strike of the clock rattled through her bones, an echo of promises broken back east. She had crossed miles chasing the shimmer of love and a future whispered in midnight letters, but what she found was silence. The people of the town, brisk in their errands and heavy in their judgments, stole glances as they passed. "Abandoned bride," someone muttered under breath. "She must have done something." Evelyn kept her gaze level, her posture a shield, but her eyes betrayed the tremor of loneliness that pressed like frost against her ribs. A shadow fell across her lap, and she glanced up to find a man standing there, tall and rugged, the brim of his hat catching snow. Colton Hayes, the marshal, his presence carried not by words, but by the steadiness of a man accustomed to quiet burdens. In his hand a tin cup steamed, the scent of bitter coffee rising into the cold. "You look like you could use this," he said softly. Evelyn shook her head, her lips parting to decline, pride stiffening her spine. But he didn't press. Instead, he set the cup gently at the edge of her bench and stepped away, as if grace could be given without demand, as if kindness could exist without expectation. The whispers came again before the steam of the coffee had even risen into the wind. 2 women in bonnets lingered nearby, voices sharp with curiosity and cruelty alike. "She waits as if someone will come," one said. "No man worth a dime would leave her there unless she deserved it." Evelyn heard every word. She folded her hands tighter in her lap, nails pressing crescents into her palms. She would not break, not here, not where they could see. Across the platform, Colton's eyes met hers. He didn't speak, didn't rise in her defense. He only watched, as if he knew that shielding her from words would strip her of her dignity, when what she needed most was to stand, even in silence. It was not the townsfolk who broke through her stillness, but the gaze of a child. A girl no more than 7, with a hood drawn over her golden hair, clutched Colton's hand as they passed. Yet her eyes never left Evelyn, wide, curious, unafraid. She tugged at the marshal's coat and pointed, her voice rising like a bell against the hush of the station. "Uncle Colton, is that her?" Colton stiffened, his weathered face tightening, and he hushed her quickly. Evelyn blinked, startled by the innocence of the question, by the way it seemed to tug at something she didn't yet understand. Memories swept through her in fragments, carried on the whistle of the departing train. She had left Virginia with the belief that she was stepping into a story already written, a wedding, a new life, a fresh start. Instead, she had arrived at an empty platform, a letter of rejection folded like a knife in her suitcase. She told herself she would cry later, in solitude, but never here where the world could witness her unravel. The snowflakes that fell upon her lashes melted silently, as if even the sky pitied her silence. The station had become her purgatory, each day a test of endurance, each hour a testament to her unwillingness to flee. Better to be seen as forsaken than to vanish and confirm their whispers. Better to face the cold and the shame than to admit that her heart had been left for dead. It was then, in the hush of the 3rd night's fall, that the girl broke free of her uncle's hand and crossed the platform with steps bold as sunrise. She stopped before Evelyn, lifting her face with solemn wonder, and whispered as if sharing a secret meant only for the 2 of them. "You look like the mama I've been praying for." Evelyn's breath caught, her chest tightening with a pain that was not wholly sorrow and not wholly hope. The world tilted in that instant, the snow, the clock, the judgment of strangers fading into stillness. She lowered her gaze to the child, unable to summon words, her hands trembling where they rested on the worn leather of her suitcase. And there, in that fragile silence, the lonely station became something else, a place where the ache of waiting cracked open to reveal the faintest glimmer of belonging. Colton found them that way, his niece, small and stubborn, standing before Evelyn as if declaring a truth larger than her years. His boots crunched across the frosted planks, his voice gruff with warning. "Lydia May." The girl turned but did not let go of Evelyn's dress. Evelyn, caught between shame and something she dare not name, lifted her chin. "Marshal, I assure you I am not," but Lydia pressed her cheek to Evelyn's skirts and whispered, "You stayed. Everyone else leaves, but you stayed." Evelyn's protest withered on her lips. The snow deepened as the nights stretched long, and the whistle of trains grew scarce. The storm forced even the most restless travelers into surrender. Evelyn remained on the bench, her suitcase her only companion, until Colton returned, reluctant. His words carried no force, only hesitation. "Storm will last the night. Sheriff's office has a fire. Safer than this bench." Evelyn shook her head, pride stiff as ice, but Lydia's small hand tugged at hers. "Please," the child pleaded. Against her own instinct, Evelyn rose. Together, the three of them crossed the empty street, footprints swallowed by white silence as if the world itself were erasing their pasts. Inside the quarters, warmth licked at the cold edges of Evelyn's bones. Lydia curled by the hearth, her breath softening into sleep, her small hand tangled in Evelyn's skirts as though afraid she might vanish. Evelyn sat still, listening to the crackle of fire, aware of Colton's steady presence across the room. He spoke low, his words shaped by the quiet of a man and used to confession. "I'm not fit for this. Raising her. Folks already judge me. Say a marshal's life ain't a life for a child." His eyes, weathered by dust and duty, lifted to hers. "But she's all I've got." Evelyn met his gaze, and in it saw her own reflection, fear, shame, and the fragile thread of resilience. Something unspoken bound them in that moment, a recognition of loneliness mirrored. Morning came sharp and merciless. When Evelyn stepped into the street, Lydia clinging to her hand, the town's eyes followed. Whispered voices rose, sly and slicing. Sheriff's office. All night she wasted no time. Evelyn's cheeks burned though she said nothing. Before she could slip away, Lydia stamped her boots into the snow and cried out, "She's gonna be my mama." Her words rang clear and fearless. The onlookers faltered, muttering fading into silence, but Evelyn's heart quaked. Such innocence could not be sheltered from cruelty forever. She released the child's hand gently, whispering, "Sweetheart, I am no one's mama." At the station again, Evelyn's resolve sharpened like the whistle of the next train. She told herself she would leave, not because she wanted to, but because staying risked drowning in what might never be. The suitcase felt heavier than it had before, not with belongings, but with the weight of surrender. The train rolled in, its smoke clouding the sky, promising escape. Yet as she stepped toward it, a cry pierced the stillness, Lydia's cry. The child ran, tripping in the snow, her small figure collapsing before Evelyn's path. Evelyn dropped to her knees, gathering her into her arms, snow melting against their cheeks. "Don't go," Lydia wept. "Please don't go." Evelyn's heart shattered in its breaking. She smoothed the girl's hair and whispered, "Maybe I could try." Behind them, Colton stood still, his face unreadable, his silence carrying the weight of every battle he'd ever fought. He didn't move toward her, didn't speak. Only his eyes, steady and unflinching, found hers across the swirling snow. In them was no demand, no plea, only gratitude, deep and quiet, like a vow spoken without sound. The train shrieked, wheels grinding, then pulled away, taking with it the last chance to flee. Evelyn remained. Lydia's laughter bubbled through tears, a fragile sound that lifted into the winter air. Evelyn rose with the child in her arms, her steps slow but certain, the suitcase forgotten on the platform. The snow fell thicker now, not as a shroud but as a baptism, softening the world into something new. And so the lonely woman unclaimed for 3 days at the station was claimed not by a man's promise or society's approval, but by the fierce, simple truth of a child's choosing. In that quiet act, dignity returned to her, not bestowed by the town, but born from within. Sometimes it is not blood that binds us, but the courage to stay when everything urges us to leave. In the harsh silence of the West, grace often arrives not with fanfare, but with a hand held tight in the snow, a nod from a weary marshal, a child's laughter breaking through sorrow. And perhaps, dear soul, as you sit with this tale, you too might feel the echo of that station clock within you, the long wait, the lonely bench, the train that tempts departure. But maybe your heart, too, is waiting to be chosen. And maybe one day, someone will turn to you and whisper, "That's you. You're the one I've been waiting for."